these applications can become attack vectors, as in the cloud-based applications, or you could say cloud applications in general, they can become attack vectors quite easily to corporate networks. It could be through phishing attacks, spear phishing, bulk phishing, or account takeover techniques, right? And Checkpoint CloudGuard is a very simple, intuitive, and can be deployed in very lesser amount of time, right? Well, there are 4 security elements of CloudGuard in general, right? The first one being the use of the zero-day threat protection engine using advanced threat cloud. Threat cloud is like the brain of Checkpoint. That is like the main artificial intelligence of Checkpoint, where all the events and metadata traverses across, and then the analysis would be performed in your threat cloud engine. You could say it is the main brain of the entire solution. This is where whole analysis takes place and the verdict is given out, right? So second one is the use of agent and the agentless identity protection for secure authentication purposes. So this would eventually allow secure communication from any surface. It could be through web, or this could be your mobile phones. This could be any kind of an endpoint, right? So if we talk about the third one over here, is its ability to stop the phishing emails from, it could be through Office 365 or G Suite, right? We know that social engineering is being very common these days. It's a main attack vector which leads to ransomware or even other dreadful attacks. Right. The fourth one is its ability to provide full visibility and control over your cloud applications. So it could be your security events, which can help you analyze attacks in general, as well as it provides you a little bit of information about the DLP blade, right? Your data leakage prevention, and it gives you visibility onto shadow IT applications, as in the applications which are not really authorized by your administrator, or there is no policy as such for which authorizes the use of these applications. These are just being run just beneath the nose, right? So as far as the architecture is concerned, CloudGuard SaaS integrates with all cloud services that it needs to protect through API. So this is totally a API-based protection, as in you are not really going to place a device between the service and the access point, right? Or you could say the end user, between your end user and the service provider. So this doesn't act as a proxy. This is a pure API-based integration, which provides you a single platform to manage and operate security for all the services, right? So one is your threat cloud. You get threat cloud analysis, sandblast analysis, URL protection, or you could say URL-based analysis, right? Identity protection, etc. Right. So, well, to ensure security, all Checkpoint services like DLP, phishing protection, or the ones which I just mentioned, communicate with CloudGuard over HTTPS, which ensures the secure communication and gives you assurance in the end that, hey, your network, your communication is totally secure and nothing is being leaked out, right? So, and to make the packet flow more faster, what it does is that all the scanning, which you can see in this diagram over here, which is threat cloud, sandblast, etc., all are done in parallel, right? As in when the packet hits the CloudGuard, all these security elements, they get activated, and the copy of packet is being transferred to all these elements, and then they do the processing of it parallelly, all of them, right? Well, we know that there are a couple of solutions in market which acts as proxy in front of the service provider. So what you need to do is you will have to modify a couple of MX records, or you'll have to modify the main settings, right? Which is quite different from CloudGuard. CloudGuard being an API-based integration rather, you don't really have to proxify any connection. So I would say that the API, the API-based engines, or you could say API-based CloudGuard engine, is kind of advantageous over the proxy, because the API integration does not require changing settings of the SaaS provider. You don't really have to change any MX records. You don't have to modify any settings. It is purely through the API calls which are exchanged between the service provider and your Checkpoint CloudGuard, right? So additionally, I would say that the API integration also allows solution to have visibility onto the data at rest. For example, we can say that, let's say that you have mails which are at rest, as in you have already received those mails. And somehow if it has managed to bypass your proxified solution, so how do you ensure that it is not going to affect your endpoint, just in case if it has bypassed, right? So in that case, what you need to do is you need to have a solution which has visibility on the data which is at rest as well. Right, and this is possible when you have the API-based integration, because proxifying the solution which works on the basis of proxifying the traffic, it is not really going to have visibility onto what is going on inside the mailbox or inside the folder, right? And CloudGuard, since it is an API-based solution, it is going to have that kind of visibility. So the moment if there is any kind of a malicious activity detected, it is going to be inspected and remediated if required. Or you could say as per your configurations, it is you can take the corresponding action. Right. So so if we talk about the flows here, right, we have two main flows here. One is for threat prevention, in which you can deploy solution either in prevent mode or monitor mode or detect and remediate mode. Second being DLP, where you can use either monitor mode or else you can go for detect and remediate mode. So you have two modes over there, right? So let's see how the threat protection works in prevent mode. So this is your CloudGuard SaaS, and this is your SaaS provider, and then you have performed an API-based integration between these two, right? And this is your user mailbox. So this is an example of an email, right? So when an email is being sent from the end user, mail arrives at the SaaS provider first for a user mailbox, where SaaS provider performs inspections such as SPF and spam filtering, which it is capable of doing, of course, right? From there, once the spam filtering and SPF check is performed, then what it does is that through the API calls, it is going to forward that packet or a mail to the CloudGuard SaaS. Now, at this point of time, when the packet reaches the CloudGuard SaaS, the mail would be put on hold, right? CloudGuard SaaS, what it does is that it performs inspection on mail, URLs, attachments, or any hyperlink which you might have pasted inside the body of mail, right? Now comes the question of question of business continuity. So how do you ensure business continuity? Is there going to be a delay? Yes, of course, because your mail is being put on hold, right? So now how do we address this concern regarding business continuity? Right? To ensure that our business continuity is intact during the inspection itself, what you could do is Checkpoint CloudGuard, it comes with a feature called as threat extraction, which extracts all the dynamic contents from the attachment and sends a safe copy to the user. Right? So you can see it over here. It's extracting it and it would send it to the user. Now, if attachments are found innocent, original attachments would be restored in the CGS. But let's say that if it is found to be malicious, original mail and attaches which were sent along with the mail, it will be quarantined, right? Or corresponding action would be taken on it. And if it is found to be innocent, original attachments can be restored in one single click. As in your Outlook client, you'll be seeing an option called as download original. With that, the moment you click on it, the whole file which was found to be innocent would be downloaded and given to you. So you are not really having any kind of a downtime over here, because you are using threat extraction over here to get the safe copy of the file. So you can still ensure that your business continuity is intact. Now, it is to be noted here that without threat extraction, if mail is found to be innocent, email will be delivered only once the whole inspection would complete, right? So this is how the threat protection for email works in prevent inline mode, right? So moving on, then comes threat protection for file shares in monitor only mode. So in this case, we are having this SaaS provider over here, and then we have our CloudGuard SaaS server over here, and this is the users folder. So a file first reaches the SaaS provider, and then SaaS provider would forward it to the user folder. Remember, we are talking about, we are talking about monitor only mode over here, right? So what happens at this point of time is that a copy of that file will be created from the user folder, and then it is going to be sent to the CloudGuard service for the inspection purpose, right? And then CGS is going to, or CloudGuard service is going to inspect that particular file for the threats. Then the file is discarded after the inspection completes, because the reason why it discards the file is many of the government customers, or most of the customers, you could say, they have this concern that, hey, since you're transferring a file from a user's folder to the CloudGuard, so what do you do with our file? What do you do post-inspection? So we can say that the file would be discarded post the inspection, and then user folder, in the case of your monitor only mode, the user folder would remain unaffected for any verdict because you have deployed this in monitor only mode. But the logs and events and the corresponding reports would be generated to the CGS portal, and you can do your investigation from there, right? Now, the third one, this is an example of threat protection in file share when the solution is being deployed in detect and remediate mode, right? So in this case, we can see that this is the SaaS provider here. You could say the file share provider, you could say, and this is the CloudGuard SaaS, right? And then there is a user folder over here. Okay, this is the user end. So first what happens is that the file is being sent. The file would reach the SaaS provider, and SaaS provider would forward it to the user folder directly. Then a copy would be generated, right? A copy would be generated and it would be sent across to the CloudGuard SaaS for further inspection. Then CloudGuard SaaS, what it does is that it is going to perform its own inspection for threat extraction, threat sandboxing. It is going to check if it, in the end, if it is found to be malicious or not, right? Till that point of time, when the inspection is going on, user can still open the file and can do his own operations, right? And once the CGI is done with the inspection, it is going to discard that file. Then it is going to give out the verdict saying that, hey, is it found to be malicious or not? And let's say that it was found to be malicious, then from the user folder, the file would be sent back to the global quarantine folder, right? Events and logs would be generated after that. Now, I get to hear a lot of questions here that, hey, let's say that this particular file of ours, it had some dynamic content. So in that case, and let's say that the effect has already started to take place. So what do you do about that? So in this case, what CloudGuard does is that at the moment it forwards this application onto the user folder, or when the copy is being sent to the CloudGuard server for analysis, at that point of time, it is going to check your timestamp. And that from that timestamp onwards, it is going to see what kind of activity has this particular file done. And all those activities which were done by that particular file, all those activities would be reverted back, or you could say all the corresponding actions would be reverted back once the inspection is completed and verdict was found to be malicious, right? Then the fourth flow here is that of DLP, data leakage prevention. And the example here is of file share, and we are deploying the CloudGuard SaaS in monitor only mode. Right? So we have a CloudGuard SaaS server over here, and this is the user folder, right? And since this is a case of DLP, what happens is that a file is being shared first, right? A copy of that shared file would be first sent to CGS for inspection, right? And CGS would inspect the file based on the policies which you have defined at the time of configuring the whole solution, right? The file is discarded after the inspection completes. And then the user folder totally remains unaffected because you have deployed the solution to be in monitor only mode, right? And then it is going to generate all the events and logs which it had found during the inspection, right? Remember, here there are no remediations, there are no actions being taken on the basis of verdict. It's purely on the basis of monitoring, right? So then comes your detect and remediate mode, right? Here you have a CloudGuard server, and this is your user folder in your end. And when you integrate it with your, when the DLP of CloudGuard is being used, it is going to create a vault folder. Okay. And first, when a file is being shared, then a copy of that file would be sent to CGS for the inspection purpose, right? And CGS inspects the file on the basis of the kind of configurations that you might have pushed at the time of tuning the whole solution, right? And then the file is discarded after the inspection completes, and share is removed and file is sent to users folder, vault folder here, right? And events and reports would be generated correspondingly, right? I hope the flows are clear. If they are not clear, you can put the questions in the Q&A section. I'll be answering them at the end of the session, right? So by now we know that the whole solution is being installed in the cloud, and CloudGuard SaaS integrates with various SaaS providers using APIs, not by proxifying the connections. Example can be when, let's say that the user shares an email or a file through SaaS application, API calls are being made to CloudGuard, and CGS does its own inspection on it and takes defined action. Right? So for that to be done, Checkpoint uses Sandblast technology for the zero-day threat protection. So in this case, the artificial intelligence would be used along with the sandboxing, right? It is going to check if it was found to be malicious or not. So it does various attempts to find out the malwares. It performs document encryption. It comes well equipped with capabilities to unveil the shadow IT applications which are being used all across your infrastructure, right? And to provide protection against the account takeovers, CloudGuard SaaS provides identity protection, or you could say it integrates with various identity providers such as Okta, Microsoft AD, Azure AD, Centrify, etc. So the sole purpose of having an integration with all these identity providers is to give you identity protection, right? So, and to receive the feeds and all, it integrates with ThreatCloud, which is again the brain of the whole solution, right? To further secure user access, you could say that the CloudGuard integrates with third-party applications here. Okay, it would rely on something like Okta. So it receives threat feeds from Checkpoint Threat Cloud, which I just told you a while back, right? And it could be from the mobile devices which are deployed all across your organization. And finally, you have full visibility onto your infrastructure, right? So these are a couple of additional protections that it has to offer. That is protection against zero-day threats, data leakage prevention. It unveils the shadow IT applications, as in the applications which are not authorized by your administrator. And it provides anti-phishing. Now, if we talk about CloudGuard SaaS, shadow IT discovery module, right? So we can say that the CloudGuard SaaS is a cloud service with cloud-to-cloud API architecture, right? It's integrating from one cloud to another on the basis of API. And then, both of them talk to each other via the API calls, allowing it to have easy visibility onto unauthorized SaaS activity without having to rely on proxies, right? Still, since it is, it is using the API capabilities, you have full visibility onto data which is at rest, and you can also view the past transactions, right? So even if the data is lying inside your, it could be inside your endpoint. So in that case, you can still have visibility onto the activities which that particular application could be performing. For example, let's say that you have an application which is invoking some kind of an encryption routine without having to run the Microsoft cryptographic service. So that's something illegitimate. So that particular activity would be, observed by the CloudGuard SaaS module, and then eventually it is going to take the action which it is supposed to be taken, right? So here you can see that you'll be able to see all the applications which are classified as shadow IT applications, right? And now CloudGuard detects any classified sensitive data, which is, let's say that if you're sharing some sensitive data, your CloudGuard is going to detect it, right, via SaaS, and immediately will have it block, or you can take corresponding action. If you're deploying it in monitor-only mode, obviously it is just going to give you the reports, but it is not going to have it blocked. But then if you deploy it in detect and remediate mode, the moment it is found that any sensitive classified data is leaking, or let's say that is being shared across, which is not really considered to be legitimate in your organization, it would immediately have it blocked for you, right? Additionally, enabling you to force a data encryption policy, right? You can write a policy saying that only if the data encryption is in place, move the packet forward. Otherwise, you can have it blocked immediately, right? So it comes well equipped with real-time sharing of threat intelligence across network, or it could be across various mobile devices, or with the threat cloud, which is the main brain of the checkpoint, right? So moving forward, so to prevent the account takeover attacks, or you could say that to counter-attack the account takeover techniques, CloudGuard comes with the agent and agentless method. Right? First, let's talk about the agent-based method. So malicious logins can be prevented even if the provided credentials are correct, because only those users with the ID guard endpoint agent will be allowed. For example, if we take a look at this if you take a look at this deck over here, we can see that once the employee accesses or requests an application, the moment the request is being sent, it would be intercepted by your identity server. It could be Okta, Azure AD, or ADFS, etc. So what identity server is going to ask from the employee is that, hey, show me your identity, prove me your identity. So in that case, let's say he has the agent in his system installed. In that case, it is going to have a look into that particular agent, and it is going to see the configurations of that agent, and on the basis of that, it is going to identify if the person or the device through which he is accessing, if it is legitimate or not. Right? Even if you provide correct credentials, and if identity endpoint agent is misconfigured, or if it is not present in the right way, or if it is absent at all, so in that case, it is going to block your access totally. Right? So here you can see that a hacker, when he tries to access an application, right, what identity provider does is that it asks him to prove the identity. And let's say hacker fails to prove his identity, which should be more applicable, because hacker wouldn't have access to the agent base with right configurations intact, because this is kind of bound to the MAC address here, right? So the second one here is purely on the basis of heuristics, right? So this is an example of your agentless protection, right? So in the case of your agentless protection, the CGS, or you could say CloudGuard SaaS server, it would collect the network intelligence from premise devices, threat cloud, which is the checkpoints cloud, and from the various other SaaS, and further it is going to prevent the suspicious logins or suspicious attempts, right, to log in on the basis of heuristics, such as it would consider heuristics such as the bad IP reputation, or it could be presence of logins in multiple locations, right? That's something which is very suspicious. So it has this huge list of heuristics which it uses to calculate, or to take the attacker in confidence, right? It is going to check if how many checklists were being met. For example, bad IP reputation, if a malicious URL was there, right? And if it was a case of multiple logins, right? So it is going to check all those heuristics, and as the number of checks increases, it would eventually increase the confidence level of an attack. And once the confidence level of an attack is increased, you can configure accordingly. You can configure the severity on the basis of severity which you configure. For example, high severity will look for lower confidence value, and then medium severity is going to look for medium severity value. So eventually, on the basis of severity value which you set across, it is going to have it blocked, right? So this is how the whole of the CloudGuard SaaS works, right? And if I were to take you into, if I show you the console over here, so this is the main console of your CloudGuard SaaS. You can see that it's a cloud-based solution over here, right? And in the overview itself, it is going to show you all the security events, such as number of malwares, phishing attacks, shadow IT applications, data leakage prevention attempts, anomalies which were found, right? All the login events in the form of the geographical map, right? So it is going to show you all these details. Well, the Cloud App Store, it has the list of applications or SaaS applications with which you can integrate. And the examples of those SaaS applications are Google Drive, Box, OneDrive, SharePoint, Gmail, Dropbox, ServiceNow, etc. Right? So all you have to do is just click on Start, right? And once you click on Start, what it will do is that it is going to ask you for the API client ID and secret. And you need to provide that client API ID and secret. And once you do so, your CloudGuard will become aware of which Google Drive server, for example, it is supposed to be communicating with. For example, I have already done the integration for Outlook over here, right, which is on Office 365, right? Then you can define a couple of other settings over here. For example, anti-phishing settings, right? So then you can frame a policy over here. And yes, as far as the mail is concerned, you have to define something called as mail flow rules, right? You'll have to define all those rules over there, which it will, through which it will be able to understand what is exactly supposed to be the mail flow of the Office 365, right? For example, now I have framed one single policy over here. So if I click on this one, so you can see here the mode which I was referring to in the decks, right? So here you can see that it comes with detect mode, prevent mode, remediate mode. So you can just set up according to the needs of your organization, right? And then here you can define what kind of blades you would want to use. For example, if I would want to use threat emulation, antivirus, anti-phishing, anti-URL reputation checks, etc. And you can automate the alerts as well. So this is all you do for the configuration. And this is hardly going to take 5 to 10 minutes. And once you're done with that, what it would do is it is going to fetch all the users which you have in your Office 365, integrated with your Office 365. And then it is going to start protecting. It would say that, hey, we have started the protection, and then it would start protecting the entire Office 365, right? So as you can see over here, if you go to events, you'll be able to see all the phishing events or all those malicious attempts which were being performed on your Office 365 or whatever the cloud application that you have integrated with, right? For example, here you can see that there was an alert which was generated, right? And then the severity was found to be medium, and it was a phishing attack. And it says that the phishing attempt was detected in an email from so-and-so, right? If you click on it, you'll be able to see the exact email as well, right? And there are a couple of actions which you can take. For example, you can either dismiss this and ignore it, or you have an option to let's say that if you feel that that is a false positive, you can classify it to be a false positive as well, right? And optionally, you can click on alert user of phishing. With that, it should be able to alert the user without taking any specific action. Or else you can say that, hey, quarantine this email, or you can create a whitelist rule as well, right? So you can obviously automate all these actions, but right now it is deployed in detect only mode. So I have kind of, it is kind of asking me what kind of action would you like to take, right? Of course, you can automate all of these actions, and then it would be automated. The moment any kind of a phishing attack would be found, it is going to take the action which you have configured, right? So here you can use the filters to filter all the events. Right, so here you can integrate with your identity protection, such as your Okta, Azure AD, etc., in the identity protection tab here, right? And the good part about this is that when it comes to managing the whole solution, or look at the logs and reports and etc., so you can either use the web GUI itself, this one, or else if you would want, you can take the fingerprint of CloudGuard SaaS and access the whole solution with Smart Console, which is a legacy blade of Checkpoint. Right, so you have both the options over here, right? So that's all from my side. So now we can have a look into the questions and answers which you might have.
All right, thank you so much, Afzal. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thank you.